Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. It is the final installment of my ink exploration series. We started with black inks, moved our way through the rainbow, and are now at the very end with purple inks. And this is the last purple category that I have for my collection for this series. And the category, I named it purple black, but this could also be kind of like purple gray or purple dark gray. I kind of included some of those too. As for supplies, like normal, I have my 𝗦𝗃𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗏 notebook here with the original Tomoe River paper, 10 inks today. This ink vial holder from 𝗦𝗃𝗁𝗏𝗏 Designs that was gifted to me by Priscilla. And then I have my typical swatching things, so a condiment cup, a pipette dropper, my 𝗂𝗃𝗁𝗏 brass dip nib with the aluminum handle, a jar of water, and then my old t-shirt. I just want to say before I start swatching, thank you to everybody who has watched this entire series of my ink collection. This has been such a fun set of videos to make, and I'm really excited to come up with other videos that I can use my inks in because they're just ultimately so much fun to play with. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who has watched the playlist or watched certain colors that they were interested in. It's just been a pleasure to make these videos, and I'm so happy that it was just overwhelmingly loved by so many of you. So thank you. Now let's get into swatches. So the first ink I have is by Ferris Press, and this is Tanzanite Sky. And Tanzanite Sky is a very dark, moody, almost blue purple color. I don't really know if this one can be considered purple black, so part of the ink exploration of this is you guys tell me what you think about this category. But for this ink specifically, the shading does get very, very, very dark, almost to a black in my opinion. I would say this is definitely more of a blue leaning purple. It has a coolness to it, maybe even a shadowiness to it. It's definitely not super pungent or pigmented in terms of the color. When you write with it, I have found that no matter what size nib I use, it is always really dark in writing. I've never gotten it to be any sort of light dark purple color. That makes no sense. But the swatch itself has kind of like a more medium purple ring around it, and then the shading gets really dark. But I've never had that medium purple color show up in any of the writing, even when I've used an extra fine nib with this ink. The next ink I have here is Solar Storm from the Diamine Inkvent Green edition. This was in 2022. It is a chameleon ink, and it is gorgeous. This ink is honestly one of my favorite purple black inks. When Diamine released this in their Inkvent and I swatched it for the first time, I was in absolute love. It does have a beautiful teal to gold shimmer in it, but the base color is definitely this, I don't know, like purple black is like the best color I can come up with for this. It is super dark, a little bit warm, but a little bit neutral at the same time. It doesn't have a super big brightness to it. I would say in the pens that I've written in, I usually use glitter in like a stub nib or a broad. The stub definitely performs way better with this, and the shimmer shows up beautifully. With the broad nibs that I've used it in, it's okay, but it's not as much, like I prefer the stub if I'm being honest. The shading on this isn't very substantial. There's not a whole lot of shading, but the shimmer definitely shows up if you use it. If you were to uptake this without the shimmer, there is a little bit of a green, or not a green, a red sheen that shows up, but it's not super strong. It still looks very dark, and it's honestly kind of matte in finish. The next ink I have here is Sailor Yurameku Yoi. This ink is quite beautiful. It has a cloudiness to it. Honestly, it feels like a thunderstorm cloud to me. It's gray, so maybe this one won't be more purple black, but more purple gray. But with the shading, I feel like the shading dries down really dark, almost to black, but definitely a bit more purple. I think in terms of consistency, Sailor is a wonderful brand for that. They have great inks every time I use them. They are a bit more pricey, which I've said in probably all of my videos, but they do also have different kind of shading properties. And their Yurameku line is actually one of the lines that has a lot of those chroma shading aspects. So Yoi is what I would consider a chroma shader. It does have different color tones in the shading versus the base color. And I feel like it's a really good match to put in any pen. Next up, I have Robert Oster's Summer Storm. Robert Oster's Summer Storm has a grayness to it. So again, this one may be more purple gray versus purple black, but the shading in this one is absolutely beautiful. I still feel like Yurameku Yoi is very much of like a dark thunderstorm cloud, but I feel like Summer Storm is the lighter version of Yoi and a bit more purple, honestly. I would say I love writing with Summer Storm in any nib size. I most recently had it inked up in, I think, my 𝗬𝘃𝗏𝗏 extra fine, and it was an absolute dream to write with. I wrote it completely dry and loved every second of it. Robert Oster is a fantastic brand in terms of ink volume to price, in my opinion. They have a very affordable range of colors. If you get more into their shimmer colors, they get more expensive, but their standard line are always really good. I will say there is another ink that is similar to this that I enjoy a little bit more, but it is an exclusive to Atlas Stationers, and it is their Polar Vortex. It is like the blue version of this, almost a navy version. I don't know. It's really beautiful nonetheless. Next up, I have Sailor Shikiroi Shigure. Y'all help me on this one because I've been working on my pronunciation thanks to you guys. And this ink is definitely dark purple. So the base of this ink has a warm dark purple color, and then the shading is what really makes it more of a purple black ink for me. I think in terms of writing with this one, it does stay really dark, like the Tanzanite Sky from Ferris Press. I've never really gotten it to show up super purple. It's always been really dark. I will say though, the shading in this one is probably the reason for that. So the base of it's like a dark warm purple, more like a warm red purple, honestly. And then the shading gets more down to like a darker blackish purple color. It does have a little bit of a sheen, but nothing super crazy. And I would definitely say, again, it's a Sailor ink. It behaves beautifully. I've never had any issues with them. Next up, I have Monteverde's Chameleon. And this is definitely the warmer side of the purple black. I would say when you first swatch it out, it has a wine to cherry red color to it, like a dark cherry red. It is definitely a red leaning purple. But when it dries down, it ends up being a little bit more brown even. I don't know. This one's definitely a good, like Chameleon's a good name for this one because it does change a little bit as it dries. The shading in it is more of a dark blackish color. It's not a lot of shading, but it is enough shading in my opinion. Typically when writing with a pen for this one, for me specifically, I do get it to show up a bit lighter, more like that kind of reddish brown black color. It's still purple, but it's not as purple as some of the other ones that are on the pages already. Next is Monteverde's Elephant. And a little fun fact about me, elephants are my favorite animal. So naturally, when there was an ink called Elephant, I had to try it. I actually didn't pick this ink originally because of the color. I picked it because of the name, and I'm still very, very happy with it. Monteverde is one of those sleeper brands to me. It is so good. They're so affordable, and they're just always a hit every time. I've never had a bad experience with the Monteverde ink. Honestly, they've all been fabulous. In terms of color for Elephant, it is definitely purple black. This one fits 100% into this category for me. It is purple and it is black. The shading in this one does go pretty much all the way to black, and the base purple is so dark. I don't even know if the camera will be able to pick up the purple in it. It's very, very dark. I will say in terms of some of the other purple blacks that I'm going to be swatching today, this one is one of my favorites. If I were to pick the other two that I've already done, it's going to be the Sailor Yurameku Yoi and then the Robert Oster's Summer Storm. But we still have 3 inks to go, so let me hold off on saying all of my favorites. The next ink I have here is Colorverse 𝗦𝘁𝗏 by Starlight, which is a Goulet Pens exclusive. And Colorverse's 𝗦𝘁𝗏 by Starlight may honestly be considered a blue ink, but I feel like it's too purple leaning. I don't know. It is a shimmer ink. It has this beautiful bright silver shimmer in it, and the sample that I got actually didn't have a whole lot of shimmer, so I didn't really get to experience however much shimmers normally comes with. I've been told it's supposed to be really shimmery, but my sample was like only kind of shimmery. So I don't know if it's just a sample I got or if that's just how the ink is. In terms of the color, it's definitely a moody, dark purple, bluey color. It has a gray to it as well, and the shading does get down to not completely black, but definitely a darker gray. I would say this color is fantastic. I absolutely adore this. I've put it in a medium nib, a broad nib, and a stub nib. No, just medium and broad. And I've loved every experience. I will say I did have an issue with my medium pen that it clogged really bad with this. So I don't know if it was the pen itself or if it was the ink. I've never had issues with it before. So maybe it's the pen, I don't know. But I will say the shimmer is definitely a bright, silvery, glittery color, and it is absolutely gorgeous. The next ink I have here is Van Dieman's Birds of a Feather Mandarin Duck Breast. So let me just say right off the bat, if you're not a fan of sheening inks, do not get this ink, okay? Just don't do it. It is such a high sheener. It's got a lot of sheen. In terms of the base color, it's definitely more of a cool toned purple, much like the Tanzanite Sky. It has a blueness to it. The sheen, however, is, I don't know, it's like blue and black and red all together. And kind of gold too. I'll save that for the dried swatch, but it doesn't have a different kind of color to it once the sheen appears. In terms of consistency, Van Dieman's is pretty standard. I've never had an issue with it clogging a pen or feathering or anything. I do think that they are a bit harder to find. Not all retailers carry them. I've only really been able to find them at Vanessa Pens and then Pen Chalet, but I'm sure there are other retailers out there that sell them pretty regularly, but those are the two that I've been able to get samples from at least. I actually don't have a whole lot of inks by Van Dieman's, and I've been trying to increase my collection of them just so I can get a better feel of the brand itself, but so far I'm okay with them. I don't have any problems whatsoever. And the last ink that I have for the purple blacks is my newest collection of inks from Birmingham Pen Company, and this is Byzantium. And Byzantium is definitely purple black. This color is so cool and beautiful and perfect, honestly. So when I originally purchased these, I talked about it a little bit already, but I was hoping this would be a little bit more purple than it actually is, but it's definitely a bit more black, and with the shading it does go even darker, and with the sheen it does go even darker as well. So not super purple, definitely more on the black side of things, but I actually really like writing with off black. That's why I love so many colors in this group, honestly. It's definitely something that I look for in ink, is something that's off black, so this one fits perfectly into this category for me. In terms of the color of the Byzantium, the base color is definitely a dark, warmer purple black color. It does lean a little bit more towards the red side than the blue side, and then the shading goes pretty much to black, and the sheen is also black, but it has like a matte sheen to it. It's not super shiny. I would say consistency wise, of the Birmingham Pen Company inks that I have been using, I love them. They are beautiful. Flow is wonderful. No feathering so far. No clogging, nothing. It's a great experience every time. And I've used a few of them so far for a few months now. So I'm really happy with this brand, even though it is pretty new to me. I would say the only downside of the BPC inks that I have found so far is, one, they do not ship internationally, and two, there are no samples. So you have to either buy the bottle from the website itself or get some pen friends and have them send some samples to you. But other than that, I really do enjoy this color of ink and this brand of ink. Alrighty, that is it for now. I'm gonna let these finish drying down. I would say this page looks pretty purple black to me. Some of them, yes, maybe a little bit more purple gray, but it's okay. We're going with it. I will see you guys in a minute though with some dried down swatches, and we'll do some close-ups. Alrighty, I am back. Everything has pretty much dried down. There's a little bit of wetness over here, but I think it'll be fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and zoom in and show you guys the close-ups. So starting off with Ferris Tanzanite Sky, it does have a bit of a reddish black sheen, but like I said, it's a little bit matte. It's not super shiny. The shading does go pretty dark. It's definitely got a shadowiness to it. I like this one. I'm not a huge fan, honestly. I have some other ones I like more, but the color of this one is a bit more cool toned, blue leaning purple versus just straight up neutral purple or even a red purple. So I would definitely say this is a good one to fit in the purple black category just because of the shading alone. But overall, the base is definitely more of a dark bluish purple color. Then we had Diamine's Solar Storm. I'll see if I can get the shimmer to change. Okay, so that's the teal shimmer. And then this is this gold shimmer. I'm telling you, this is one of my favorites from that ink vent. It was so beautiful. It does have a bit of a reddish black sheen again. As you can see too, that dark base color is definitely more of a muddy, dark, purpley, blackish color. It's very dark. I will say in the pens that I have tried it in, like I said, I don't really get this color that much. I mainly get this color, like the darker version of it, and mostly just shimmer. And I have to say, I absolutely adore this ink. Next, we had Sailor Yurameku Yoi. And yes, this one probably is a bit more of a purple gray versus purple black, but I felt like the shading was dark enough that if you compare the writing, right, like it's kind of close. It's more of like a dark gray purple, I guess. But the shading is beautiful. It does have almost a chroma shade to it, from this kind of grayish purpley color to a dark navy purple here in the middle. There is a very minor yellowy black sheen, but overall the shading on this one really sells it for me, and I love the shading. I will say Sailor does have a pretty known established base of colors that have lots of different shading properties, and this one is no exception. Then I did Robert Oster's Summer Storm. Again, this one's probably more of a purple gray versus purple black, but I feel like it fits well with the rest of these. The shading on this is absolutely stunning. I love the shading in this one. Even in extra fine nibs, I always get it to shade no matter what I put it in. As I've talked about with the Robert Oster brand, I love the consistency for the price and the volume you get for the price, so always a winner in my book. As for the color itself, I'd say it's a bit more of a cool toned purple, but more towards the neutral side. Like it's still pretty medium purple with a little bit of blue in it. The coloring of the shading reminds me a lot of like a cloudy day, not as dark as the Yoi. Yoi is more of like a thunderstorm cloud, and this one's more of just like, I don't know, a dusky dawn sort of cloud. I really enjoy this ink quite a bit, but I will say there is another one that I like more, and it is Robert Oster's Polar Vortex, which is an Atlas Stationers exclusive. It's much like the shading in this one, it's just much more blue. Then I did Sailor Shikiroi Shigure or Shigure. I don't remember the sheen being this strong on it, so that's kind of a new instance for me. But the base color is definitely a dark, deep bluish purple color, and the shading does go down to almost a purple black. The sheen, however, decided to take over this time, and you can't really see much of the shading in here. You can probably see a little bit of it right here, but the sheen is pretty prevalent for today. I would definitely say I don't usually experience that much sheen with it when writing, but maybe it's just the amount of ink I put on the page. I don't know. In terms of consistency, again, it is Sailor. I've always had a good time with it, never had any issues, and the color fits pretty well in this category for me. Then we have Monteverde's Chameleon. This one does have a very minor black sheen to it, but it does shade all the way down pretty much to black. If you watched me swatch this one when it was still wet, you'd probably think it looks a little bit different now, and you would be correct. The original color of this when it's wet is more of like a wine burgundy color, and then as it dries down, it gets into this deep, warm, purpley black textured color. It has almost a, I don't know, like a scaliness to it. I don't know if that's a thing, but in the big swatch is mainly where that shows up. As you can see with the writing, it definitely shows up very dark, very black, and I've always experienced that with it. I've never gotten it to this lighter shade over here. I've only ever experienced the dark shade here in the middle. Next to that, we had Monteverde's Elephant, one of my favorites in this group. It does have a bit of a greenish black sheen, but it's matte and very subtle. It's not strong whatsoever. The base color of this is a definite dark purple. I'd say it's pretty neutral in terms of tone. It's not super red and not super blue. It's pretty in the middle, but the darkness of it is, it's pretty dark. It does shade down a little bit darker in here. It's hard for the camera to pick that up, but in person it is showing up a bit darker in the center around the sheening edges especially. And in terms of writing with this one, again, I don't really get a lot of the shading in writing. It's mainly just that flat, dark purple color. Then I did Colorverse Witch by Starlight, which on camera is showing up a lot more blue, and in person it's a lot more of like a purple color. So like in person, these two next to each other look very similar in tone, but on camera this one is much bluer, which I think is really interesting. You can definitely see that beautiful shiny silver shimmer. So I guess I did have enough shimmer in my sample to do this one for you guys. It does have a bit of a reddish black sheen as well. I would say the base color is a mix between blue and purple. It's a pretty good combo, and it has almost a grayness to it as well. I really do find it interesting at how blue it looks on camera, at least in my viewfinder, and how purple it looks in person. It's pretty crazy. Next, we had Van Dieman's Mandarin Duck Breast, and look at the sheen. I was not kidding. It is a very high sheening ink. I would say that the sheen is black, but in the light it looks very gold. It doesn't really have any kind of shading that I can tell, just because that sheen is just so overpowering. With that being said, anytime you write with it, it's sheen. You don't really get this dark bluish purpley color undertone. At least in my experience, I've never had that show up. I've only ever gotten the sheen. And the last ink, and my newest ink, is the Birmingham Pen Company's Byzantium. You can definitely see the shading a lot more in this big swatch than in the last one I did, which I think is awesome. It has this kind of grayish dark purple base that's a bit more on the cool side, and then the shading is definitely almost to complete black, if not like a charcoaly gray color. There is a very minor sheen. Again, it is black, but very matte. It doesn't really show up all that strongly, which I can appreciate. And I have to say, I haven't written in a pen with this one yet, but it's already one of my favorites just based on this color alone. Alrighty, that is it for the very last ink exploration of all of the color families in my collection. And I have to say, if I wasn't a ink addict before, it's out in the world now. So just know that if you're an ink addict too, I'm here for you. We will be in this together, and we'll use up our collection. Don't worry, okay? We're gonna use it up / add more to it over time. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, for joining me here today, for finishing out this series with me. This has been such a blast and so much fun to play with my inks pretty regularly throughout the last 6 months or so. And I'm really excited for the next few videos I have coming with inks, and I hope you are too. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.